Okay, how's everyone doing today? It's about 20 before 9. It is Tuesday, June 17th. I want to do this real fast so I can log in and work and get a bunch of stuff done for my work. But I got something to talk to you about today, and I'm actually very excited to talk about this today, too. I know I've mentioned in the last video or two of my book reviews that I have a little stack of books on the side of my desk just waiting for me to make my notes and put things through. However, I just read a book yesterday that was nice and short, to the point, and it was so cool to finish it last night as well, that I wanted to just get it down immediately and talk about it. Without further ado, this is How the Skin Sheds by Chad Lutzke. And it is another one of those splatter western novels that I've been talking about for a while now. I've got a whole bunch on my shelf. I'm going through every single one of them, and as I do, you will hear my thoughts on it. With a lot of these splatter western novels, by the way, there are kind of like any book you take off the shelf. You're either excited to read it, and you're going to go through it at whatever speed you go through it, and you're either going to be very happy when you put it down, or you're going to be kind of let down. So in this series I do of Joe's book reviews, I'm talking about either my happiness or excitement, or my downright despair with the words that I end up finished reading. So, and I will say, like, this genre has been an interesting little change of pace for things I usually read too. It's just not the usual flavor where you get more horror-ish or graphic-ish or gore or what have you. There'll be a lot of descriptions of murder, of eviscerations, of stabbings, and just what they do with the wounds. It's not just one of those just kill them and they fall over and they die and whatever else. It's a little graphic, it's a little hardcore, which I find nice to see every now and again. It's a break from the situational, sitcom, whatever kind of things that you get on TV at like 8 p.m. on like ABC or CBS or NBC. That has to be censored and brought to you kind of like, I don't say flat, but it's niceyed up. It's nice to have the darker, not nice things from time to time. So the details, like I said, they're going to get very fierce. Just gets you into the action, so to speak. But there have been a number of installments in the splatter western genre that have been kind of a little bit of a letdown. So therefore, when you find one, or when I find one, should I say, that becomes like a home run, I'm happy to share that I picked up one that is like that. And I'll say right off the bat, How the Skin Sheds does just that. Okay, I was very happy that I was able to enjoy this book. And let me tell you why. For starters, like I mentioned, this is a short one. Look at that. It's about 100 pages. And I'm sorry, my notes are a little bit vague here. Oh, okay. I know what I'm saying here. Gotcha. So, because I knew it was thin, whether it was going to be a good book or a bad book, I knew I was going to rip through it. Because even on a bad book, if you find out you've only got so many pages left over it, you're going to just finish it and get through it. So, I knew it was going to be another story to add to my memories, either good or bad, because it was a nice little short, knock it out, you got it. And that's what I love. I love stories in general, whether I'm reading them, whether I'm watching them on television or a movie theater, whether I'm listening to someone talk. I'm just enraptured in getting a new story, a new perspective on either something I know about or I don't know about, or I never saw it from that point of view before. So I'm a story collector in my head. This one clocks in at 100 pages on the button. And just, I'm kind of out of touch these days on the economics of certain books. Death's Head Press, which is part of Dead Sky Publishing, they're an independent book publisher. All right. This one here at 100 pages has a cover price of $15.99. Okay. And I was wondering if $15.99 for 100 pages goes into the too much realm or not. Does my old thinking still hold true today? Now, obviously, when I was younger, paperbacks would be like maybe $4.95 or $6.95 at the biggest, unless they're like the oversized trade paperbacks, which are editions I do like. I don't know with inflation and whatnot if today's $15.99 is yesterday's $4.95. Not sure. Just for comparison, on the same exact publisher, though, here's Christopher Triana's The 13th Coyote. Okay. Same publisher, clocks in at 491 pages, it looks like. And this has a cover price of $24.99. So it's $9 more for an additional 391 pages. So there's the side-by-side. $15.99, $24.99. Okay? And that extra 391 pages for $9 is about 2.5 cents per page extra. So, not sure where the economics fall into this. It might be just fine. It might be on the high side. I'm not sure. I just kind of pause a little bit. Now, interestingly enough, I'm kind of holding off on reading this one till last on my bookshelf. It's supposed to be a trilogy, and the first two have actually come out already. Okay, this one came out in 2020, and the sequel came out in 2023. If we extrapolate that and say, hey, 3 years, maybe we'll see part 3 in 2026, that'll be fine. Unfortunately, there's no mention that I was able to find by doing a Google search looking for Christopher Triana, looking for trilogy and coyote and werewolves and that kind of stuff. So, no idea when the final edition could possibly hit the bookshelves. I know that he's writing other novels along the way, as writers do. So, but I'd just love to hear some kind of whisper on the wind of when we might get a finale for this. I'd love to read all three, boom, 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 back to back to back. So, Mr. Christopher, if you're out there at all, I don't know if you get this question all the time or anything, but if you could just give us a sign, and please don't George R.R. Martin us with this, that we're not going to see it for like 10 years or so. Incidentally, it's one of the reasons why I am not going to read A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, because I want it to be finished before I start it. Those things are tomes, and I don't want to get so invested in it that I don't see an ending. I already went through this once before with Stephen King. When Stephen King was writing The Dark Tower, he put out The Gunslinger, which is kind of a rehash of something he had did decades prior. First one was amazing. Second one came out years later. It was amazing. And then Stephen King did his little tomes thing for like a third and a fourth installment. But between the third and the the second and the third installment, 4 other books were released. And then between the third and the fourth installment, 8 other books were released. So he was always, at the mill. But unfortunately, after the fourth one came out, that dude got hit by a van. And he was in the hospital, or maybe even in the ambulance getting to the hospital. And there's an urban legend that maybe like an EMT tech or something was like, you can't die. The Dark Tower is not finished yet. So eventually he kind of got off his ass, or got on his ass, whatever you want to call it, and finished up the rest of the series. Unfortunately, it had that typical Stephen King ending, or non-ending for us, but we got to see him finish it. Again, George R.R. doing the same thing. It's been 13 years between the last installment of A Song of Ice and Fire and the next one that has not come out yet. And it's not even supposed to be the last book in the series. So, alright. Sorry for the major tangent. I do have a capability in my mind of just going from thought to thought to thought, but I'm working on that. Much like I'm trying to work on saying, as a filler between sentences, which I wasn't even aware I was doing until I rewatched some of these, and I was like, oh my god, why do you even say that? Moving on and getting back to the point. So, very thin, which almost like I mentioned in the last video I did for Stephen King's Rage, which is about a school shooting. Thin, early on, concise, great storytelling sometimes. And this, like that other book, Rage, was nice and to the point. Okay? I would like to believe that Chad Lutzke had the ability, if he wanted to extend it for another 100 pages or so. He could have gotten into the antagonist's point of view of why he's doing it, or the pleasure he's taking from doing it, or that kind of realm. Could have got more details into, like, the event's history of every time there was a murder, have that be a scene. There could have been some world building going on there, or connect the events, more one to another. But he didn't do that here, which is fine. Every author's entitled. He got to the point. You could have made a 100-page story into a 1,000-page story if you were so willing to. But what we have here, okay, I'm at 11 minutes now, finally getting to what this is about. This is a revenge story, okay? Or more to the point, an avenge story, okay? You have a cowboy that comes to go visit his sister, which he does every so few months or so, and comes up upon the house, and the house kind of looks abandoned-ish. Doors open, barn doors open. Just doesn't look right. And of course, he comes inside, he finds that his sister had been murdered, brutally raped, eviscerated, and through the course of her being continually knifed, is even missing a part or two now. And he finally gets to the next room because he has a niece. And he does find a bloodied and raped albino niece called Nadine, who, luckily for us, is able to, describe the attacker and what he looks like and his very unique facial features before he fled, because she stabs him in the shoulder or so. And from that point, as they say, it's on. Okay? They burned the house down with the body in it because neither one of them had the gall to, even pick up a shovel and bury her. By the way, no one's ever coming back to this house again from this family. Niece will live with the cowboy, with the uncle, and then move forward. So just burn the house, burn the body, burn everything else. It's a way to get rid of that part of the past and move forward. They hit the road. They pick up a friend along the way, a recently freed slave, a black man named Franklin, who never quite did get his 40 acres and a mule promise that was supposed to happen to freed slaves. And since this is so closely after the Civil War, he's still not exactly welcomed by white people he runs across. Hell, runs. Even if he walks within eyesight of. He's got a hard life. And I will say, even for its short run length, okay, there's certainly enough of the delving into these characters, really flesh out some good three-dimensional personalities in this book. How Chad Lutzke gives us enough of Franklin to get where his head's at. Also with the niece, Nadine, her journey and evolution through this book is well documented and is great for the character development. She journeys from little girl to survivor to assassin to woman. It is just clearly amazing to read, and you can hear it in my voice. I'm very excited about this. But as for the story's journey itself, it's very 1, 2, 3 as it moves along. It comes across the travesty, picks up a compatriot, journeys to a nearby town to see if anyone knows who this guy is and where they might find him, whereby they come across other bodies who are killed in a similar fashion. Meet with the townsfolk and rest for the night, and there's another attack while they're there. Gets a lead on someone who might have some kind of mystical ability to help them and guide them who's nearby. And let me just say, for number 6, that happens. And then they find they should go see a witch who lives somewhere else, who will probably help them better. Journey to the witch, find out what that town has to offer, sprinkle in all that little mysticism that goes there, which are pretty much a staple in all these splatter westerns, and come to a conclusion. Okay? And I'm using a phrase that's like paint by numbers. However, I want to emphasize that while that phrase sometimes is used with a negative connotation, I am clearly no way saying that about this work and what Chad does. Okay? It's just the sequence of events, one after another. It's one of the reasons why I actually am a good fan of the John Carter series that Edgar Rice Burroughs has written. It's high action, but you don't have to spend the time with those like Chekhov's gun type of parts while you're reading it. It's not, we're going to introduce you something in chapter 2 because we need it later in chapter 20. It's just, John Carter, damsel in distress. I'm going to go save her. Bad guy escapes through a back tunnel. I follow him down a tunnel. Bad guy jumps in a boat and goes down river. I jump in a boat and I pursue. 1, 2, 3. And we're along for the roller coaster ride. It's great stuff. Now, I'm going to mention 2 things that I'm going to put as a critique of the book. Okay? Again, these are never my purpose of doing this, per se, but these are my thoughts as I'm going through here. Okay? Number 1 is something I talk about in every single splatter western I review. Okay? And that is the editing or lack thereof in a lot of these stories. At one point when I was reading it, I think I got to around page like 70, so I'm like this far into the book already. Camera, there it is. I'm this far in, only these few pages left to go, and it kind of like dawned on me. I was like, wow, I haven't come across those typos, those editing errors, the grammatic problems. They're in every single book. And while I'm trying not to be on the lookout for it, I will notice it when I come across it. I talk about this in depth in some of the earlier Splatter Western reviews. But every book has one. And a lot of them, I think, if you're using something as simple as Microsoft Word, a little F7 on the keyboard usually gives you a little check. Okay? But finally, it did happen on page 88. Okay? And this is the kind of occurrence, occasional occurrence, whichever word you want to use. But this is the kind of event that the wrong word was used because it's spelled like another word kind of thing. So, for instance, anyone who's been typing along, doing whatever else, if you go to type the word from, you can juxtapose it and make it form. Okay? From, form, same letters, different order, right? And even Word sometimes will say it's a legitimate word, could be fine in how it's used. Okay? And I did come across that in one sentence here. Okay? It didn't really affect anything, but it just kind of ruined the perfect game that this book was being at that point. Okay? And it's a very simple sentence, and the sentence says, Lady Bethlehem reached over and brushed Nadine's sweaty hair from her brown. Okay? Brown. Obviously, it should have been brow. Move the sweaty hair from her brow. Okay? Got it out of the way. Unfortunately, brow became brown. Doesn't work. So, it's a proper word, brown. It's a color, but it's not what was correct here. Oh well. It's the only instance, and there's a whole book that I found this. Okay? Like I said, no hitter, perfect game, unfortunately. Very small item, one of the 2 I want to bring up. Okay. The second one is one of those things where as I'm reading it, I'm like, why are they doing this? Okay? And let me tell you about that. Somewhere around those steps, like 5, 6, 7 in the book, it got a little unsettled with this whole, like, why of the action that was taking place. So, but when I got to it, I was able to throw it in the back of my mind. I was like, I'll deal with this later on. Meaning now, later on. But it had a little, like, is this a plot hole moment? Okay. And I'm trying to think of a way to put this. So it's, so the book gets into a side quest early on. Just after they enlist Franklin to help them out with their endeavor, they run into the Law, who is like this old school racist type. Okay. And the cowboy and Nadine have to go and rescue Franklin from the racists who are probably just going to lynch him and kill him and burn him and what have you. Okay. There's a little adventure here. More things progress for the characters while this is going on. Okay. And up to this point, though, before this whole thing happened, they were literally coming up to body after body after body in ways that the sister was killed. All right? And after the racist event occurs, they go to the town, try to find some stuff, and it happens again, like literally right under their noses. Okay? So then they get it in that they got to go find some like seer, right? Someone who's going to get a little mystical intervention to help find the guy. And in my mind, I'm like, you're literally like on the trail. Like the dude just struck 2 hours ago. You're there. But, okay, it's not my story. I didn't write it. We'll just use this as our lead to the next part of the story as the pages go. And this is all step 5. But then they go and see the nearby, there's like twins, and one of them is so, and they kind of help out with that kind of thought process. But it kind of goes awry, and then they're told, oh, you should go see the witch. The witch can probably help you out pretty good. She's better than us anyway. And by the way, the witch is like across the little desert, down the canyon, through the forest, and then ask within the town that you find after that. And that's where it really kind of struck me. I'm like, you're right there. The guy was literally in the house you were in. Why in the hell's bells do you need to take a few days' journey to go find the mystic to help you find when you know where he was just at? And so I'm like, the trail is hot. You don't side quest off of a hot trail kind of a thing, but that's being just critical. I mean, I get it. You know, the author needed the story to get there, and you had to move the roving gang to be in the proper place to set up the ending that you wanted to write. So, if there was a connection of why they had to do it that way, maybe it was thin or I was just too stupid to realize it. But I went along for the ride, and it still had its ending and whatnot. So, okay. That's all I have for you. I'm surprised I actually went over 20 minutes as it is. I gotta go log in. But there you have it. And like, despite what I just said about the thin connection and the mystic and the witch and that kind of stuff, I thoroughly enjoyed what I read here. Okay. If you're into this sort of genre, I'd recommend you picking this up and give it a go. I would say just go to like a Barnes and Nobles or something to like, and just, you know, take it off the shelf and read it in the aisle. Because at 100 pages, it won't take but 2 hours max. But these books are not in Barnes & Noble. You know, not the physical brick and mortar stores, by the way. You might be able to get them online or Amazon, whatever else, but sometimes books and a return policy don't go hand in hand because they don't want you getting a book, reading it, and returning it. But give it a shot. How the Skin Sheds, Chad Lutzke. Oh, by the way, you do get that one little moment in this book. There's a great Family Guy thing about this when they actually say the title of the book or the title of the movie in the movie or in the book. That literally happens at one point where Franklin was talking to the cowboy saying like about Nadine's evolution and how the skin sheds. So you get it, and you get that internally ha ha kind of moment. So a fun little thing for you. In any event, let me let you go. Thank you very much for going this far. You know what they say, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Would appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye now.